Hello, good day everyone, and welcome once again to our class in ethics. I hope that you are all fine and in great shape and you are keeping yourselves safe from COVID 19. Anyway, before we will proceed to our new lesson today, let me bring you first back to our lessons in the past. No, from the first until the last lesson that I uploaded few days ago. This is to give us a sense of connectedness. We can connect the dots, and with that, we can see the direction of our lesson. So, if you remember, the first lesson is on the importance of ethics. And the main question was, why should there be ethics? Why is it required and important that each of us will observe and follow ethical standards? And so we have learned that in order for the society to have peace and order, then each member of the society must keep and observe ethical standards. We cannot imagine how chaotic, how disorderly a society can be if people will just do what they want to do without regard of any ethical standards. So with ethics, there can be peace and order that will exist in our society. And more than that, the purpose of ethics is to prepare our lives for the future. Because our life will not end in this world, but there is such a thing as the afterlife. So that is why we have the imperatives of ethics. And what are these imperatives? We have the existence of God, the existence of the afterlife, and of course the existence of the human freedom. So after we have discussed about the importance of ethics and the imperatives of ethics, the next topic was about the law, because we can only determine whether the action is good or evil or not good if we have standards. And as we have learned, the standards that we are going to use as a measure in determining the goodness or the evilness of the action are the laws. And as what we have learned, there are three types of law. We have the eternal law, that is thought to be the mind of God, that is governing everything in this universe. And then from the eternal law, we go down to the natural law. And accordingly, in this natural law, our actions are in accordance to our nature, that all the creatures in this world behave according to their nature. And for the human beings, our nature is to be humane, makatawhanon. And so all our actions must be humane. And if not, then the action cannot be considered good, because that is our nature. And the third is the positive law. The positive law, these are the ordinances or the laws that are being implemented in the state or in our municipality or in our barangay, because it requires action. Actions that follow the ordinances and the law of the land, then these can be good. But if we violate any of these ordinances or laws, then there is penalty or punishment. And from the law, we identify what are the actions that can be subjected to ethics. Because of course, as we have learned in the past, ethics is the determination of the goodness and evilness of the action of man. So the prime question was, are all actions of man can be subjected to ethical standards or ethical evaluation? And then we said no, because we have to identify first what is the classification of that action done by man. And we have learned that there are two classifications of the actions of man. We have the human act and the act of man. And accordingly, only those actions that are classified as human acts can be subjected to ethical evaluation. Because for a human act, there must be the presence of knowledge, will, and freedom. meaning to say it is of own decision and volition of the person when he does the act, which entails, of course, responsibility. Okay, so only actions that are classified as human act can be evaluated morally or based on ethical standards. The rest of the actions, these are classified or called as acts of man, and these are amoral, meaning to say they are outside morality. They are neither good nor evil, because these are actions which can be considered as effects. Most of these are effects of the physiological or biological processes of the human body, such as kagutom, kauhaw, makurat ka, no, and other things which are spontaneous, meaning to say they are not willed, they are not intended. They are just the result of processes that happen in our life. So those are the topics that we have learned in the past. Have you seen the dots? That these topics are interconnected to each other. We can see that one topic should be understood in order for us to understand the next topics. Okay? So this morning, we will move on to a new topic. Okay, so I hope that you are ready and prepared for a new lesson, a new input in ethics. And I just want you to encourage that in every lesson that I present or share with you, you should also try to reflect yourselves and try to apply this into your life so that makaingon mo, mao di ay ni, inana di ay. No? There should be a personal application of these things, of these concepts to our personal lives, because the main objective of this course is for us to become ethical individuals, to become persons who adhere and keep and observe ethical standards, no? Especially in our dealings with our family members and other people in the community. So, we have mentioned many times the term good. Good. No? In our dialect, maadyo. When is a thing or an action is considered good? No? Kanus aman mamaadyo ang usa ka butang. And of course, this is a very tricky question because it may generate varied answers. No? We have different concepts of goodness. No? Siguro, what is good for one person is not good for another. That is why, di ba? If you watch a beauty pageant, there can be varied reaction coming from the audience, from the people watching the pageant, because mayon sila nga, naunsa tong ilang ride na, mautoy gwapa nila, unsa na kahing ngilad. Meaning to say, we have different concepts of what is beauty. Na po ginaingon nga, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But anyway, with regard to goodness, kamaadyo, that's the same. We have different concepts and understanding about what is good. Bisan sa mga tao, no? Para naho si Mr. So and so is good, pero para sa uban, mo na buutan para nimo, mo na maadyo para nimo. He is not good for them. Or what is good for you may not be good for me. So we have subjective and varied understanding of what is good. But despite this different understanding, at least lain-lain man siguro ang atong pagsabot og unsay maadyo, but we have a uniform understanding that there is such a thing as good. Kitang tanan mo agree, kitang tanan mo suporta nga dunay maadyo, na ay something as maadyo. Do you get me? Kitang tanan nakasabot nga na ay maadyo. Pero what is that good Now, there comes now the difference, because what is good for me may not be good for you. Okay, so that is an accepted fact. That is why in this lesson, I am going to present to you the different perspectives and the different understanding of what is good. But before proceeding, let me tell you that in ethics, there are actions of man that are considered intrinsically evil human acts. Okay, so intrinsic. So when we say intrinsic, by itself, no, by itself, it is in it is within that action. Intrinsic. It is its nature. By nature. So when we say intrinsic, by nature, by itself, it is already evil. So when you do this action, automatically, in all circumstances, the action is considered evil. And what are these? And of course, I know that you are familiar with these actions. Okay, so the intrinsically evil human actions are the following: cheating, stealing, lying or pagpamakak, rape or pagpanglugos, and murder or pagpatay. So these are the actions that in all circumstances, in all situations, kini sila nga mga actions are considered evil. Okay, so I repeat: stealing, cheating, lying, rape, and murder are considered by ethics as intrinsically evil human actions. So when we say intrinsic, by nature, by itself, these actions are evil and therefore should be avoided by man. With that, let us proceed now to the different understanding of what is good. Okay, so one of the most common bases in determining what is good is our experience of pleasure and pain. Diba? As far as goodness and evilness is concerned, we associate pleasure to goodness and pain to evilness. So when our actions will cause or will affect pleasure, then what you are doing is good. And of course, if you inflict pain or if you cause pain to yourself or to somebody else, then that action is evil. Okay? So, actions that provide pleasure are good actions, but those actions that will cause pain are evil actions. But somehow, this basis of morality is not that solid. It cannot be considered as a solid ground in the determination of goodness, because there are actions that may cause pleasure but eventually will lead to pain. For instance, the case of the abuse of drugs or shabu. Diba? When those individuals who would use the methamphetamine hydrochloride or shabu, they experience pleasure. No? They go to the highest heavens as an effect of shabu. At the first glance, the action is providing pleasure to an individual, so perhaps it can be considered good. But in the end, eventually, this action of taking shabu will destroy the person, and not only himself, but also to his family and the community afterwards. So, at first, it may be good on the basis of pleasure, but eventually it causes evil. So that is why when we base only our morality or our ethics on the experience of pleasure, then it could be a difficult basis of goodness. The same with pain, because there are instances or occasions that we have to undergo painful experiences because in the end it will lead to goodness. For example, a person will have to undergo medical operation. Medical operation may be painful, especially when the anesthesia will already lose its effect. The patient can feel the pain of the wound. It is painful. And in our understanding, it can be considered evil because it is painful. And yet, eventually, the painful experience will bring us to good health. Okay? Drinking soft drinks is good because it gives us pleasure, especially it's very cold. But then eventually, excessive drinking of soft drinks like Pepsi or Coca-Cola will cause you diabetes, and that is bad for the body. Or on the other hand, taking medicine, especially tablets, it's bitter. It doesn't taste good. We don't enjoy taking medicines. So it can be associated as evil. But no, eventually, after we have taken our medicine, it will give us, or it will restore good health. So, as I mentioned earlier, pain and pleasure as basis in the understanding of goodness or evilness, for that matter, is not a solid ground, because there are situations wherein it will not speak of goodness or evilness. Nevertheless, we have that. No? We have that notion, or we have that understanding that goodness or evilness can be associated to pleasure and pain. Things that are pleasing to our feeling, pleasing to our senses, these are good. And those things that can cause pain to our body are considered evil.